I mean, we're only talking about 5 players, like, Cantlay, Schauffele, Scheffler. It's a good chance one of them's going to cash in for you. It's basically going to be the winner or the guy who finishes like second, but probably multiple of them won't be factoring into winning lineups either. It's if these guys don't perform and don't make enough birdies, like they'll get passed and they won't have big birdie scores anyways. So, and they're also 13,000. So you can make more optimal lineups by dipping down a little bit, and guys who improve their placing, even if they just improve it a couple points, they'll make up the rest for it and birdies are better. So it's an interesting week. This one always has stumped me in the past, but it does seem to be, from the data we've had now the last couple seasons, you pick one guy at the top. It doesn't even have to be Scheffler. If you like Scheffler, that's fine. But you should be building, not by trying to just take the top 2 guys just because, they're first and second. Those placing points will shift, as Reed said. And if one of them doesn't perform, or even both, they'll get passed. And then the placing points won't mean anything.
Do you have a favorite at this point?
What's that? Sorry?
Do you have a favorite at this point?
I mean, it's, again, if I was making one lineup this week, and there's really no right or wrong approach, it feels like, but I would probably fade the top 2 guys and start with like a Schauffele and Rahm and go from there. You still double dip on 2 guys two elite players, obviously over 10K, but they're less than Cantlay and Scheffler. And Schauffele has been extremely consistent. Rahm was putting better last week, still leaves you with 6,700. You're still going to have to dip down there and use like a Hollywood Hoagie or a Brian Harmon or an Aaron Wise. I think most people will be looking at Aaron Wise. So that's another thing to consider. But regardless, you use one guy down there and then you're kind of balanced out. You even KH Lee at 6K, that still leaves you the ability to probably grab one more 7K player. So be looking to maybe go pretty hardcore in terms of just like stars and scrubs, but you can even go more balanced than that. You could look to go like John Rahm as your starter and maybe pair him with Sam Burns and Finau or something like that, or Justin Thomas down there at 9,400. I mean, these are really good players. They can make up a lot of ground quick. So, a lot of different ways to make it this week.
For those that couldn't hear us, I understand there were some technical difficulties. We were obviously talking about the Tour Championship and the 30-man field, and obviously looking at some of the placement. You can see some of the betting odds courtesy of the DraftKings Sportsbook on your screen right now. Getting Jeff's approach to lineup building. What about you, Reed? How would you look at it in terms of favorite guys that you have at the moment? Are you looking for the same balance that Jeff was talking about?
Yeah, so if you take a look at the winning lineups of the main tournament on DraftKings at the Tour Championship, you had John Rahm last year at 13,000 come in at 39%. You had JT, these are the most expensive guys. JT 11,900 at 27%, and then Rory McIlroy in 2019, the year he won, and he's the only winner of the FedEx Cup who was actually in the winning lineup. He was 36% at 10,600. So that's kind of your play right there, right? And like Jeff just alluded to, only one time have we seen, and it was last year, that 2 players in the 5-digit figure in the winning lineup, and the second guy was Justin Thomas. So that's what you have to think about. I think Xander Schauffele, he's been in every single winning lineup over the last 3 years. He just loves this course. He's done no worse than a 5th, I believe. Yeah. He's won it. He in 2020, he was a low gross, so he was low 72 scorer. He's just so good at this course. I think he's going to be 25, 30. I bet you he's 30% rostered at this point, especially with Zalatoris not playing. He would have been 11.5, right in that range. So a lot of that's going to go to him. A lot of it's going to go to John Rahm too at 10.9 with what he's done now on the weekends over the last 2 events, where he just comes out guns blazing. I mean, I don't think he had a bogey in the last 2 rounds last week. So they see that, and manager's going to say, yeah, that's definitely it. So you could go Scotty Scheffler, you could go Cantlay. I don't mind it if you want to swerve a little bit, but the 2 guys that I'm looking at specifically, and this is a Patrick Reed, Bryson DeChambeau play, is Cameron Smith. No one wants to play Cameron Smith because of the live rumors, the hip injury, sort of has the scarlet letter, like Jeff was talking about, or maybe that was us before the show with your shirt, but that's kind of where I'm gravitating towards, even though you need off the tee here, and he's basically 3rd worst in off the tee in this field. he's so good everywhere else, right? He's that good everywhere else. But my favorite guy, no, it's not Finau, even though it's a great play in my opinion, is Sanjay M at 9,100. There's a lot of correlation. We've seen it with Sedgefield Country Club. Don't know why, because these courses aren't necessarily the same, but a lot of correlation with Sedgefield, which is where Tom Kim, which I found out actually, Tom Kim doesn't want people to call him Ju Young. He wants him to be called Tom.
Yeah. Yeah. We learned that last week.
Yeah.
That was, and now I just always think of Jim Carrey and Ace Ventura when he's coming out of the bathroom. Tom Ace.
Right. Sanjay, $9,100. He's right there. He's the guy. He's runner up at Wyndham. He's had a fantastic, I guess, run of tournaments there. It's not great here for Sanjay, and he's lost on approach in his last two events, which is kind of scary. Hopefully that takes people off. Hopefully people go to JT. People love Cameron Young, right? Fitzpatrick has been talked about quite a bit. Victor Hovland had a fantastic Sunday. Sanjay did not. Sanjay had a terrible Sunday. Hopefully that causes him to be less rostered. He's one of my favorite guys.
So the two guys that you zeroed in on, obviously being Im and Smith, they're right there in the odds board at plus 2,500 apiece. What about somebody, before we go to you, Jeff, you can think about this, Reed, you first, somebody who's something of a long shot to win this thing?
Yeah, I think so. Aaron Wise was a guy. I think he's at plus 4,000 last time I checked, or he's around there, maybe a little bit deeper actually. That might have been.
Yeah, no, he's dry. Plus 20,000.
Okay, so maybe that was with the strokes, or not. It couldn't have been. Anyway, Aaron Wise at plus 20. Like, if you want him to win, this has to be without the starting strokes. Excuse me.
Plus 20,000 with starting.
So if you go to the winner tab, Koff, because I'm probably not gonna be taking.
You're not worried about strokes.
Yeah, it's just because there's so much variance, you can't really predict it. So I think,
so Wise split. Yes, you called it plus 4,000.
Yeah, so that's where I'm going here. And then if I'm, just because of what I mentioned, he's been fantastic in the playoffs. He was top 5 in the back 9 on Sunday, but a double bogey streak took him out of it. He's been fantastic ball striking in the playoffs. That putter is working for him, so I like him. But plus 8,000, Scott Stallings. He's been he could have won that event last week if it wasn't for a pretty fortuitous bounce by Cantley, who went over the bunker on 17, then kicked back in the fairway on 17. He ended up birding that hole. It could have easily been Stallings there if a couple of shots went his way. So he's been playing great golf. He's got a solid he's got solid experience in tournament history at Sedgefield, which is what I like. He hasn't played here yet, so maybe it's I'm looking at these guys like, hey, there's nothing to hold you back. So you might as well go out and absolutely perform. He was fantastic last week. So give me Scott Stallings at plus 8,000.
Stallings T10. He is 7 strokes off the lead right now. And again, on the DraftKings Sportsbook, that's about as long as odds as you can go out of the 30 to Reed's point, as far as being able to jump on, potentially get a real bargain on a guy who is playing pretty well, at least through round 1. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah. The long shots and the without strokes are definitely interesting. I might even just throw a couple bucks on Tom Hoagie, to be honest, at like plus 15,000. Yeah. I mean, he gained like 7 strokes at the 3M, and it was only like a month ago. He's probably not that far off, but I think my favorite bet here, I like Corey Connors at plus 2,800. The ball striking is great. He's very consistent off the tee, which is great for East Lake. A little bit worried that he's not going to have the putting upside to necessarily win an outright, but the guy who does have the putting upside is a little bit smaller in odds. Sam Burns at plus 2,200. I like this for Burns because he's got to be aggressive anyways. And, it's kind of a crash and burn. It's a very boom or bust pick. Like, Sam Burns is probably either going to shoot like 64 or like 74 on Thursday. But if he shoots 64, he's going to be right in it. And he's going to be up a the leaders with strokes and maybe even without, or with strokes, potentially with strokes and definitely without it. So Burns has been a fast starter too. You can think about him for first round leader, but I think Burns is a guy I'd be invested in there. Im's a little bit shorter. I've been on Sanjay so much the last 4 weeks. I'm kind of getting fatigued, but he does set up well. Reed's correct. So I would even be fine. If you went with Sanjay and Burns as your 2 outright picks for the without strokes market. I think those guys are both. One of them could easily make a run. And the nice thing is if they do make that Thursday run, they'll be out there among the leaders in terms of just the pure strokes. So those are kind of 3 guys, I guess, if you include Connors, that I'm looking at. I'm not sure how deep I'm really going to go. Like I said, I might make a sprinkle down there. on the guys at like plus 8,000 or bigger, but I don't know. Like I like Aaron Wise, obviously Reed knows that, but he hasn't really putted that well. And the other guys down there, I just don't trust enough. So I'm going to stick to probably taking one of these guys, two of these guys at 2,000. And Burns is probably my favorite, but Connors and him right up there too.
Before we move on, guys, our pal CEH in the YouTube chat, he's asking about DFS value here for this tournament. What do you think, Jeff?
So, I mean, obviously, like, the value is all relative this week. Like it's relative to starting position, and obviously, like there's extreme values down at the bottom. So I think Aaron Wise, obviously, the thing about Wise at 5,400, he's also going to be the most owned value. And typically when guys around that range get heavily owned, it's not a bad time to pivot off of. Like I'm pretty interested in Brian Harman down there. Brian Harman is just a player who his approach game's been good. Yeah, he's definitely going to be deficient off the tee here, but like, Kevin Na went 14 under at this event last year. Brian Harman sets up very similar in the fact that he can save us for the simple fact that he'll get hot with his putter and approach. I think Harman's a really good pivot. He's played well. It was only 2 weeks ago. He was third place on Bermuda greens. I'm going back to Brian Harman at 5,700. I don't have a problem with that. So I think that's like a good value pivot, you could call it. And then just in terms of good value, like where the guys are sitting, I'm pretty big into Corey Connors this week. I mean, he's really up the ball striking. He's coming in here, got himself into the tournament, should be having loads of confidence, just kind of playing without his money. I don't know, if, relatively speaking, if he's like a huge value compared to where he's starting, but I'll certainly play him over Hideki, who I mean, honestly, I feel like Hideki, he might just come here and shoot like 478s and just like collect the 500K and be done with it. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting with Hideki right now. I don't know.
Read any favorites?
Yeah, a question, Jeff. I don't know if you know this, but does Zalatoris get $500,000?
Yep.
So he's essentially last, right?
He's 30th. Yeah, he gets.
So it's not like a WGC where like Daniel Berger style where you just hit the first ball.
Where you have to tee up to get it. No, because the qualifying for the Tour Championship is like what gets you the bonus.
Right. Okay.
So perfect. He's basically last. He's finished last. He still gets
That's not my value play. It's not Will Zalatoris. But
he's got projected for tough conditions this week. Plus 16 winning score. Take Will Zalatoris at 0 points.
So value, there's no real value, right? To what Jeff is saying. There's only 30 golfers. So you better be expecting, like, no one's going to be 0.00%. It's just not going to happen. No one's going to be 1%. I think the lowest you're going to get is probably like 15%, 16%. So if that's the case, you have to think, okay, if you're doing a build, right, a roster build, which pricing tier is probably going to get skipped the most? That's probably where the value is. And I would argue that the 9,000 guys, Finau, JT, Sanjay, Cam Young, that to me is probably going to get, and Burns, that's probably going to get skipped the most. To that point, I think Jeff hit the nail on the head with Sam Burns. I think that's the one guy that probably is going to be your best value because he's right there by Cam Smith. People might be silly like me and be like, oh yeah, everyone's not going to play Cam Smith, and everyone does. Everyone loves Finau with how well he's playing. JT is, JT, and Sanjay's been talked about. I think Jeff, you wrote about him. I definitely wrote about him. I've been talking about Sanjay ad nauseum for the last month, as has Jeff. So like it's probably going to be someone like Sam Burns. So it's less price now, and it's more which pricing tier do you think is not going to be hit the most? And I think it's going to be the $9,000 guys.
All right, let's stay with golf, but let's move off the Tour Championship for now. At least if anybody has any questions, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you're finding us, by all means, let us know. But for now, let's go to what's yet to come, something I know that all three of us are pretty excited about, although we're going to have to wait a year plus for it to roll around here. January 2024 is when this is supposed to begin, and that is the TGI, or as Jeff likes to call it, the Tiger Golf League, or TGL, pardon me. I think it's probably the Golf League or whatever it actually stands for, but it involves Tiger Woods as well as Rory McIlroy. These two guys pairing up. Just looking at some of the ESPN release here, tech-infused golf league in partnership with the PGA Tour. So this isn't like Live Golf. This is in partnership with the PGA. And players will compete on 6 3-man teams in 15 regular season matches that, again, begins in January 2024. 2-hour, 18-hole matches on a virtual course, so kind of an esports feel to it. The matches will take place in prime time on Monday nights. You have to imagine these will be televised, obviously. Guys like Rory and Tiger will participate, in case you were wondering about that. A custom-made venue, yet to be determined location. So there are still a lot of facts and figures and things to still come out as far as details with all of this. But Jeff, this is pretty good. I mean, it's really interesting. What intrigues you most about all this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, kind of just finding out about it and really just reading word about it before the show. But I mean, this has the potential to this has the potential to either be a letdown or like really, really intriguing and kind of open up more doors for golf. Obviously, they're trying to bring it to a stadium. They're trying to bring golf like a different atmosphere. It's kind of like it feels like what they're trying to do is bring the 16th hole at TPC Scottsdale into an actual event and just have it in that atmosphere the entire time, which is really cool. And I think it's definitely worth, like that's what golf needs. They need a little bit more of just the mainstream sport attraction. So, the golf league with the golf league, the Tiger, I don't care what you want to call it. It's definitely like, I like the idea. I mean, I would like to see like that. It's one of the best event of the years is TPC Scottsdale because of that stadium course. So definitely like exploring more opportunities to get that kind of atmosphere going, all for it. How it's going to work out, I have absolutely no idea. They're going to be hitting into a screen apparently. And I assume like virtually they're going to place the ball where it lands. That's what it sounds like.
So just, looking at some of the details here.
Just assume I'm a boomer. Assume I'm your dad and explain it to me.
Yeah, of course. And I'm relying on the press release basically to do that for all of us. But the TGL indicated that venues will feature a simulator the players will hit longer shots to, but then there will be, there will be an authentic green area for chipping and putting.
Right.
So, as Rory was talking about it, just to read his quote, he says, who knows where we're going to see Tiger Woods play golf again, right? We don't know what his schedule is going to be. He only appeared in a few events this past year. We don't know how his body's going to be, but to be able to see him still showcase his skills on primetime TV without any real wear and tear to his body, not having to walk an 18-hole course and everything, to be able to see Tiger hit golf shots, still sort of provide people with a glimpse of his genius. I think that's a really good use of his time. So that's it. And as Tiger has called it, sort of the next evolution of professional golf. That's really kind of what we're looking at here, Reed. We're looking at a way to, in some ways, and I don't know what kind of money is going to be associated with this. Again, a lot of details still to come out, but we're looking at sort of a really different way for golfers to extend their careers once they get to a certain point.
Yeah, and before I move on to that, there's one other sleeper that I want to talk about. CH, it's Colin Morikawa. He's there at $7,900. No one wants to play him. Everyone thinks he sucks this year. He's probably going to do really well this week. Anyway,
there you go.
Going back to this, I see where Jeff's coming from, but I think it's a win for the PGA Tour, and here's why. There's one thing that they can't get right now, and it's the younger audience in terms of viewership. Younger audience is playing golf. Something like 14 million. I was looking at the stats earlier. 14 million millennials are playing golf, or have said, in studies that they've played golf on a course. And Gen Zers are, and especially this was true with the pandemic, are picking up golf at a higher clip than previous iterations. So people are playing more golf, which is fine, but are they watching it, right? And that's really where the big money comes in, right? The advertisements, or as Jeff likes to call it, the advertisements. And like, that's how you have to think about this is, can they make this mainstream? Well, now you're on Monday night primetime. You have Monday Night Football, but I'm sure it's going to be before. So you have that. B, now you're attracting the esports players, right? We saw this kind of at Long Drive, and what they were doing is they're bringing this new class of spectator. They're bringing a new class of professional athlete with these guys who are competing in this Long Drive contest. So that's also included in it. And what I think this also A, needs, and B, would highlight is guys like Max Homa and other players, maybe like Joe Dahman or some of these guys who have big personalities but don't have the platform yet. This is going to allow them to do that, because if there's one thing that golf severely needs, it's guys with personality, both on social and in front of the camera, being front and center on this thing. Because if we've seen anything from the match, is like, if these guys aren't good trash talkers, and Phil Mickelson, for all of his foils and foibles of what he's done over the past 6 months, he was great on the match because he knew how to trash talk, because he knew how to fill those empty moments in golf that if we're not putting sports betting lines, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, TGL, call us at DraftKings.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit hard to infuse that. I'm sure they're going to have a thing where they work on that, but you need guys with personalities. And that's where I think that the tour has failed previously, which they weren't bumping up these Korn Ferry guys. We didn't know who Cameron Young, Los Zalatoris, or these guys were until they started playing really well. Right now, we're seeing with social media that some of these guys in the amateur ranks, or on the Korn Ferry tour, that they're big personalities. That's who you also need to get in front of this, because that's how you're going to attract the younger crowd, is that they're following personalities. It's the same thing we see in basketball, right? Kids love players, not teams. Like that's the way it is. And that's what I think is going to happen with this as well, is that you're going to fall in love with these players because it's a short amount of time. It has a gamification element to it, and it's in prime time.
So one of the things that you hit on that I think is very important, and I read it off the top, but it's worth some dissection, is the people out there, like you guys both love golf, but for the people out there that don't enjoy golf, or are ambivalent at best toward golf, sort of might view golf in the same way they view baseball, meaning there's no clock, feels endless, like goes on forever. Is there are so few of those moments where there's actual excitement. You have that time to fill everything, as you highlighted, Reed. If this whole thing, 18 holes, again, largely virtual, but some of the putting on an authentic green, if this whole thing, never mind the prime time, but obviously that helps because people are theoretically around at home. If this whole thing happens inside a 2-hour window, and going in, it's a 2-hour window, and then you can inject a little personality in the process, huge win for golf. That would be gigantic toward getting younger audiences with these younger golfers you talked about.
You make a good point, because you're hitting on one of the biggest problems with golf is when you watch golf, you're just watching the tournament. You don't actually know when your player's teeing off. You could go and be like, I'm going to watch golf this afternoon on Friday. Oh, Tiger Woods teed off at 8 a.m. So he's done. So I'm not going to get to see him. So you take that element out, it make it easier for people to watch. Yeah, you're exactly right. That's one of the biggest problems with golf, just the way it's formatted for TV.
So I think this could be a lot of fun. I'm eager to learn more about it, obviously. And I do wonder, if you put some, and I'm sure the PGA has to be thinking this way, you really treat it like a primetime product. You put some personality on the broadcast, whether that's, you could go in a million different directions. Like you could have someone like a Charles Barkley, who obviously has been involved with golf broadcasts in the past. You could have somebody like a Rob Riggle, who's, does that putt show on ABC.
Yeah.
Like you could do
Reed and I.
Yeah, you look it. Sure. You could do some interesting things that just automatically
reporters,
does make this appealing.
Sideline reporters, I'm just saying we're available.
Well, not only
hypothetically.
Right. Well, you're right, Koff, because I think with golf as a sport, betting aside, because we all know that when you infuse betting into golf, and especially live betting, the sky's the limit. And I think it's going to rival football in the next 5 years. Come at me, everybody. But what you're looking at too, I think the gamification side of it is massive, right? Is think about what you can do and the element of what Topgolf has done for golf and what esports has done for sports, right? This is the beautiful intersection between our sport and thank goodness, right? Thank goodness that Rory and Tiger are talking about it, because those are probably the two most recognizable golfers, sans Bryson DeChambeau and maybe Colin Morikawa. Those two are the most recognizable golfers in the world. And I would argue that the other two that I just mentioned aren't world, they're just probably country.
Mhm.
Colin Morikawa maybe a little bit more, but those are the most recognizable golfers in the world. I first read it, and I don't know if this is not going to be true. It's obviously because it would be a logistical nightmare, but I read it as they were going to have it in stadiums, right? Like they were going to travel to stadiums, which I think would have been an interesting concept, like having the best golfers be at Wembley or Wrigley or Fenway or Madison Square Garden. That would be kind of cool. But to your guys' point, I think this is an amazing opportunity because at least they're trying, right? How many times have we been on this? And we, Jeff and I, you and I both know certain personalities on Twitter.com are just gripers. All they do is complain about the PGA Tour. And then the PGA Tour doesn't do anything. And that gives them credence to gripe more. Now they're doing something, right? Now there's a product that you can critique and then it can get better. So you love that. You love the news that came out that a lot of these guys are going to get paid. There's guaranteed money. I'm talking about the PGA Tour, not so much TGL. But this just gives another avenue for these personalities to come out because, well, we will find another Rory. We will find another Bryson. We'll find another Tiger when you have multiple avenues for these guys to succeed.
I wonder if, because there's so much, and you guys know this, like just as amateurs, and that's like being generous, as amateurs going out there and hitting the links with your buddies, you guys know this as well as anybody out there that does the same. Golf is a difficult sport. Golf is a very, very hard sport to be good at. You could be really good one day, you could be terrible the next day, and that's true of professionals, never mind us regular people. What something like this opens up, and I'm just sort of thinking down the line, any sort of contest that the TGL could have if it wants to, in terms of sort of bringing in the everyman, the every fan, that like this basically, when you infuse, as you talked about, Reed, a Top Shot, you have that Top Shot intersection with esports to bring the TGL to life. You're basically inviting the reality of a Happy Gilmore, a real life Happy Gilmore. Like if you can have a guy who can hit it a mile, doesn't matter where the hell it goes because you're hitting into a simulator. If you have a guy that's capable of hitting it a mile, all of a sudden you have that sort of must-see TV feel to where you could have contests of like it. I'm rambling here, but it takes me back to like when the freaking Philadelphia Eagles had open tryouts, back in the early 80s, late 70s. Like you could do that type of thing with this to really, bring in the people that are playing Tiger Woods golf at home.
I'm sure what you're also going to see too is the celebrity aspect to it and other athletes.
Absolutely.
Right. There's going to be that element to it because now, like you mentioned, golf is a hard sport. It's a hard sport to televise because it's across acres and acres and acres of land, right? Not like any other sport. So how do you, like Jeff was just alluding to, how do you capture all of those players at the same time? If Michael Jordan is hitting a tee shot at the same time Tiger Woods or Chris Pratt or anybody else is, you're only going to see one of those unless you got multicast, unless you got multiple screens and you're doing picture in picture like it's 2001. You're just not good. Like it's not easy. But if you had now some of the biggest names on social media, like in TV and film, or other athletes who love golf, then now you start bringing the game more athletes and then their fans into the game, right? Which then, sky's the limit.
Yeah, no, it could be good. All right, our last few minutes before we get out of here, because there are Madden Sims to get to, obviously, at the top of the hour. I do want to mix in a little bit of NFL and not, preseason preview. That's for the slate tomorrow for those guys to worry about. What I want to talk about is, Tom Brady's back in camp, boys. Tom Brady, after his 11-day absence, has returned to the Buccaneers, and he hasn't spoken. And the really funny thing is you listen to a lot of reporters or media members across national media, local as well, to Tampa, obviously. It seems like there are a number of people that do actually know what happened, why Tom Brady was away. And no, it wasn't the Masked Singer. But nobody's saying. Everyone is just sitting on it, waiting for Brady to be the one who says it, or waiting for someone else to put it out there. And I don't know, it's leading me to believe, which would be a good thing, by the way, that it wasn't terribly serious and that he was just away for, 11 days. But I don't know, Jeff, or do you have any theories about this, or do you even find it interesting that a guy of his caliber skipped out on camp for a couple weeks?
I mean, yeah, there's pretty clearly a reason for it. I mean, but I know from what I've seen reported, it's not a big deal. But But first of all, why isn't it the Masked Singer? You throwing that out? Just come on.
Because
It wasn't
it
the
wouldn't
Masked
be
Singer.
fair. If that guy looks as good as he does, he's the best football player to grace God's green earth, and then he can also sing and perform. No.
That's exactly why it could be the Masked Singer, though.
In fairness to that, I don't think everyone who's been on the Masked Singer is capable of singing.
Well, you got to have
Rob
some
Gronkowski.
chops. You got to have some chops, or so you wouldn't be on there, right?
Again,
At least
Gronk
some.
was on there. Is Gronk capable of singing at all?
Maybe, I don't know.
Anyways,
I don't know.
look.
But yes, I'm dismissing the Masked Singer, Jeff. It's a quality program, but I don't think Tom Brady was part of it.
We'll see about that. I don't have concerns with Tom Brady necessarily. I do have concerns with the Bucs as a whole. This whole season is starting to feel a little bit like is this going to go good? Like with Bruce Arians is gone, the O-line's falling apart. Brady doesn't show up until there's 2 weeks left to go. I don't know. It just it concerns me. Like Godwin's not there. Evans is banged up. This is a good team. I'm not suggesting that we're going to see a 5-win season. You're going to turn to the New York Giants or something. But I like everyone. They're still one of the favorites in the NFC. They're the clear favorites in the NFC South, where I really like fading them because I think that the Saints are just a team where they have a very similar, if not better, defense, and they're hungry over there. They've brought in new players. Jameis is excited to bounce back. I think there's a real opportunity to fade the Bucs in the betting department for the simple fact that their numbers, they were already kind of inflated because it's the Brady factor in the futures department. And then they've had these injuries and their line hasn't moved at all. And any other team, you lose 2 linemen and their numbers dropping, at least in my opinion.
They're still second in the Super Bowl odds at plus 750
what I'm saying,
on the Sportsbook.
I'm a little flabbergasted that no one's really just brought this up because I don't know. Tampa has a lot to overcome in the first part of the season. If they're not going to be healthy, and maybe I'm making too much of it, but I didn't really love the Todd Bowles move either. That's another topic. So yeah, Tampa is actively a team I'm looking to fade in the betting department, mainly through the Saints and taking the Saints to win the division. But I mean, I'm certainly not betting the Bucs. I just think that they're a team whose odds are inflated. They could be good. Brady could get it together, but I don't know. I always worry about if a guy is that close to retirement, it's worrisome.
Jeff, we've been saying this.
Retirement has never been talked about with Tom Brady, really, until last season. Even when he was moving teams.
You and I have been on this boat, and I've sunk them down with you, Titanic style. There is no room for us on that door where we're he's definitely going to fall off a cliff. MVP, Super Bowl winner. It's what Brady does. And why are we nitpicking? What we should be talking about is what Dana White said on the Gronk's show, that Brady and Gronk are almost Raiders, and then John Gruden at the very last minute said, "Oh no, those two guys, give me a break." What'd they do? They went to go Super Bowl for Tampa Bay. That's what we should be talking about. Who cares? Brady can do whatever he wants. He's Tom Brady. He can be gone for all the way up until week 1. And you know what he'll do? He'll slice and dice the defense the same way he does every single year. There's no way that give me a break.
Right. But
you've gone for a month.
My main concern isn't necessarily with Tom Brady. It worries me a little bit, but if the Bucs were healthy, if Godwin was back, I wouldn't be sitting here being Tom Brady just about retired this offseason. But when you add it into everything else,
Larry David.
I'm worried. If I was a Bucs fan, I would not be. Yeah. Anyways, I'm fading the Bucs.
I do appreciate your guy Derek Carr, Reed, staying out of the fray with all of that, though.
Well, I remember when Brady was on the Shop, LeBron show.
Yeah,
and he
that
mentioned
MFer.
Yeah, that MFer. Just put that in the back of your mind there, DC. Just remember when you potentially face them in the Super Bowl. Just remember that.
Nugget. Look, there's nobody. You want an overprop or some kind of I'm pretty bullish on Derek Carr this year. That's only going to be more motivation. Yeah, I think that Derek Carr is he can be pretty laid back, but it takes a big man just to sit back and just be like, okay, you want to say that, that's fine. Like we'll see what we have on the field here.
But
so
yeah, in terms of that division too, outside of maybe some over props with Kyle Pitts and whatnot, like you kind of want to stay away from that division, right? I think the Saints is a fine play. We talk about division winner, some props like Michael Thomas, Jameis Winston, Alvin Kamara. If nothing comes of it, you could be, you can get some leverage with his over numbers. But for the most part, like I want to stay away from that type of division. Then also a really competitive one like the AFC West, right? Those are the kind of ones that I'm like, God, I don't really know if there's any leans and any leverage right now. What you want to do is looking at like, futures and MVPs, maybe guys rookie of the year, maybe taking some chances on second, third string running backs in terms of where that's going. Just because, look, I forget his name, Dalvin Cook's brother out in Buffalo. Like there's, you talk James Cook. Is it James Cook or is that the singer? Yeah. James Cook. Like he's someone that potentially, if given the opportunity, right, could make waves as a rookie. So I will look at those things as opposed to like betting a really confusing division.
I actually had a hard time coming up with a good player prop this morning for the NFC South.
Yeah,
I do kind of agree with Pierce that Michael Thomas is a player. Like he's at 800 receiving yards, Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
I know he's like already banged up, but still, my God, that is low. Like week 12 games.
What if Jameis gets hurt? If Jameis gets hurt though, and then Kamara's not playing? It's like if Kamara's not playing and then Jameis gets hurt, and I know you can never predict, right? Because what if he doesn't? Then it's a smash.
Before we leave, what is Kyle Pitts' props? Do we have any Kyle Pitts props on DK?
I don't. You know what? We're gonna have to save it for tomorrow. I don't think we have time to look at them.
Okay,
you know what? It's reason enough for people to log into the DraftKings Sportsbook.
You look it up yourself.
Yeah, go check it out yourself. All right, we got to go. I can't believe producer Eamon isn't screaming at us right now. We're a minute from 6. Madden Sims coming your way across again YouTube and Twitch. We invite you to stick around for those. Enjoy, obviously for Moose, for Reed, Lloyd Christmas over here, Andrew, and obviously Eamon. We thank you all. The slate comes your way same time tomorrow. The Sweat 11 a.m. Eastern. So make sure you tune in for that. Probably see these two guys and get a whole lot more golf and NFL analysis. Thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you again soon.
Oh, Austria.
Shrimp on the bobby.